All set? Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Chris Marzilli. Welcome to Building Effective Roadmaps. Here is our forward-looking statement. I'm kind of excited about this session today because I don't necessarily have to talk about Salesforce. Roadmaps are kind of a universal thing that we all need. So again, my name is Chris Marzilli. I'm a CSG product director. CSG stands for Customer Success Group here at Salesforce. I don't actually work on the Salesforce product. What I work on are all of the things that you see around you today. The Success Group is responsible for circles of success, webinars, accelerators, and a whole bunch of other success programs. And that's what I work on, specifically on the platform team. So, when you talk about roadmaps, you got to kind of think about where do roadmaps fit in the application lifecycle. And there's a lot of different types of application lifecycles. You might have a lot of different methodologies like Scrum or Agile or Waterfall even. We're in the Waterfall theater. You probably have a lot of different tools that your developers and admin use. You have a lot of different environments. Sandboxes, scratch orgs, production that you'll use, but you need a process, right, to kind of manage that all and also determine, what it is that you're going to put into this life cycle. So that's really where roadmaps come into play. This is from a kind of a semi-famous blogger, Roman. He said, a product roadmap is a powerful tool to describe how a product is likely to grow, and to align the stakeholders, and to acquire budget for developing the product. So when you think about developing a roadmap, it needs to meet all of those things. It's going to describe how the product is going to grow. It's going to align all of your stakeholders. That's everybody from your executive management all the way down to your end users, even your customers. You can use it to acquire budget for your projects and also determine the path forward for developing your product. So let's talk about some of the key inputs to a roadmap. One of the worst things you could possibly do is just build a roadmap without talking to anybody, right? Having your own ideas and trying to build a roadmap. You really need a lot of different people. Like I said, it takes a village, right, to build a roadmap. So first of all, you need to think about the right purpose, right? What's a clear, defined, achievable goal or outcome that you want to accomplish with your roadmap? Your roadmap as a whole, and each one of your roadmap items, it needs to have the right purpose. You need to think about what the right process is to propel your roadmap through the priorities that matter to the business. What's the right process for you to create an effective roadmap? And how do you work with the business to develop that? And whether you use Agile or Waterfall or Scrum or Kanban or whatever you do, you need to make sure you align your roadmap to that process. You need to have the right facts. This is a critical piece, all right? To enable data-driven decision-making, assemble the facts and hypothesize. Okay, so what are the facts? The facts are the problem. What's your need? What's your driver? What's your reason the business has requested something new? There's probably some sort of problem you want to address. There might be some sort of gap, either from your customer perspective or from your end user's perspective. That's the facts, right? Those are undeniable. If the business says they have a problem, that is a fact. Your hypothesis, then, is how do we address that problem or need? And that's really where the roadmap comes into play. Your roadmap is really the hypothesis of how you're going to address those business needs or those business gaps or whatever problem that was presented to you. So your roadmap is, in and of itself, is a hypothesis. Then you need the right people, okay? You need input from all the key decision makers, influencers, and stakeholders. Again, that's everybody from your executive management to your sponsors, to your heads of business, to your end users, your managers, your customers, your end users, managers, and also your developers and your admin. You need input from all of these people to create an effective roadmap. A roadmap that doesn't include input from the right people will not be an effective roadmap. Once you have identified the right people, you need to conduct road mapping workshops. There's actually two different types of road mapping workshops that you want to conduct across, broadly across this group. I call them ideation and validation road mapping sections. Ideations typically happen first. This is where you develop your hypothesis. You are presented the problem, you get a group of people together, and you ideate. You figure out what's the best solution here. How can we address this? And I like to do ideation without the thought of technology constraints. You can worry about that later. We want to find out what's the best solution to your process. That happens early in your road mapping, very early. Once you've developed your roadmap, you should have validation sessions with your end users and your business units and your sponsors and even your customers to validate you have the correct roadmap. Get their feedback and input it. So basically, you're constantly checking with these groups of people, both beginning, during, and after your roadmap. So make sure you're conducting both ideation and validation road mapping sessions. All right. Now, Mark Benioff, I don't know if he actually was the first person to say this, but he says it a lot in our internal meetings. If everything is important, then nothing is important, all right? So you might know where I'm going with this. Prioritization is extremely important in your road mapping. You can't build everything. It's simply not possible. So you have to focus on what can you build and what's the most important thing to build. Now, there's a lot of different theories and thoughts around how to prioritize. I'm not here to say one is better than the other, but the two that I'll present today is one I like to do is mapping business impact versus ease of execution. So a very simple kind of impact on one side and then ease of implementations on another axis, and you can kind of plot where each of these features are. So if you have X number of features that you're looking to add to your application or your Salesforce platform, you can plot them as what's the business impact? Is it high or low? What's the ease of implementation? How much is it going to cost you in time, money, and resources to implement said feature? Is it going to be hard or easy? And you end up with 4 quadrants, right? Your must-haves are probably things you definitely need to do. Even though they're hard to implement, they're going to have a high business impact. Your quick wins are great things to slip into your roadmap because typically they're easy to do, but maybe they don't have the low-hanging fruit are nice things to slip in because they're easy, they have low impact, but you might be able to make a small group of users happy. And then you also have quick wins, which again are easy, but they have high impact. And then on the lower left-hand corner is where you never want to be with your roadmap. Things that are low impact and hard to implement. That's what we call the money pits, all right? So when you start plotting your features, you should make sure you avoid that lower left quadrant. What I like to do as part of my ideation workshops is have end users and managers and sponsors do their own plotting. If these are the 10 features we're going to do, plot these on the map. And then you can bring that together and kind of get an aggregate of that and see where you are, all right? And also, you obviously want your developers and your admins involved in this process because they're going to really ones going to be provide the feedback around the ease of implementation. Another way to do prioritization, it's similar but slightly different, is do value mapping based on your business goals. So typically, any good business worth their salt is going to have some sort of priorities and some sort of goals. Typically, there's a business objective, something like increase shareholder value, very generic business objective. Well, what lever are you going to pull, right, to increase shareholder value? You want to increase revenue. And how are you going to increase revenue? You're going to expand your customer growth. That's the business impact. So then you can map your road mapping items to these things. Now, this is just the top version. If we drill into this a little bit deeper, we can go even deeper into this. So in a value mapping objective, you want to increase shareholder value. Maybe you want to pull a lever called reduce costs. How are you going to reduce costs? You're going to reduce the service cost reduction. So you want to reduce the cost in your service team. How are you going to do that? The business value driver, reduce response time. And that's how you can reduce your costs. And you can actually apply some KPIs to this. KPIs are extremely important in road mapping because that's how you're going to determine if your hypothesis was correct. What's your success metric? In this case, they want to decrease time for first call response, initial pickup time, and decrease case resolution time. That's going to reduce case time. So if that's the business goal, you need to make sure your roadmap then aligns features that are going to address those KPIs. If they don't address those KPIs, your roadmap will not be effective or successful. If you are addressing those KPIs, you have an effective roadmap. All right, another quote from another semi-famous blogger. In today's agile world, presenting and communicating your product strategy is not an isolated phase of the product lifecycle. All right, I would say, back maybe 20 years ago or so when I first started out, you would build your roadmap. It would be very waterfall. You would get validation, you'd sign it off, and then you just go and build it, and that would be it. And so communicating was just a one-time thing that happened up front. That is no longer true, and there's a lot of problems in the back end when you do that. So what you want to do is constantly be evangelizing your roadmap and seeking input from all people, making sure that you're presenting it to them on a regular basis. So, I always say a successful roadmap is a well-understood roadmap. You are going to be successful if people on your team, not just your admins or your developers, but your end users, your sponsors, even your customers in some cases, know what your roadmap is. Make sure you communicate and revise your roadmap frequently, okay? It's a living, breathing document. It's never done, All right, your product is never done, your roadmap is never done. Keep stakeholders informed when things change. Make sure that they're aware of these changes. Make sure they're familiar with that. And stakeholders are important, but also make sure you have an executive sponsor who's evangelizing your roadmap and understands the roadmap and understands why you've made one choice over the other. Be very clear with dates. This is a really key part of your roadmap. When you put dates to things, you're making them real in some people's minds. So if you're going to put a date down, make sure you can commit to that date, all right? Be open and honest with progress. A roadmap can also be used to track progress of your teams and how they're working to it. If you are running behind, you need to make sure you communicate that out. It's not necessarily your fault or someone else's fault. Maybe you don't have the right budget, resources, or skills. If you're running behind, be open and honest with that. And if you can request additional resources or budget, this is a great way to do that, is by showing your roadmap and showing the progress of that roadmap and where you think you should have been compared to where you are. And then also keep it simple. Depending on your audience, think about what audience you're presenting to. You might have a couple different formats of your roadmap that show the same thing, but have a little bit different flavor of them. I'll show them right now. And like I always say, a picture is worth probably way more than 1,000 words. So let's look at a few road mapping examples that I've built over my time. So this one is a really good high-level roadmap. This I used from some executive sponsors. We had a year-long project to implement a platform, happened to be the Salesforce platform, but we had basically 3 key goals that aligned to the business goals. We wanted to build some channels, we wanted to create digital customer care platform, and we wanted to have a retail experience. And what I did here, those are the 3 things we were going to work on. I listed the major features that we were going to have in each of these phases. It was a 3-phase project, and then I also correlated them to the benefits. This is really great for a business audience, because a business audience, while they're interested in features, they really want to understand what is the benefit of these features. Why am I'm paying you some money, we've allocated some sort of budget, that's great, you're going to give me feature X, Y, and Z, but what's the benefit? What's in it for me? So when presenting to specifically business audiences, always think about making sure they understand the benefit of each feature, which also is a great way, if they see something and they say, oh, drive cross-sell, yeah, we're going to do that. I can see the benefit is increased lead volume. I might actually, as a business user, say, if we increase lead volume, that's not going to help us drive cross-sell, because I actually know that's not going to work. So that way, there's a validation there, all right? And it's a good way to communicate. And this is not complex. One thing this does lack, however, is any sort of dates. In this case, it was well understood it was a year-long 3-phase project, so I didn't have to include some dates. But that's not always realistic. So here's another great kind of strategic roadmap example. This was another one we did where, again, it was a 3-phase project we had 3 strategic initiatives. These were actually brought down by the board of directors. They wanted a portal, they wanted e-commerce, and they wanted a CRM put together. All right, and that's a very high-level, broad thing to say, that you want those 3 things. We then broke it down into the capabilities we need to deliver in each phase. And then we took those capabilities and put them on a calendar, basically. And we said, at this point, we're going to start our strategy and planning. Then we're going to do our vendor selection. We'll build the customer portal. We'll start adding the different features, and then we'll expand on it. And you can see how it goes from 2017 into 2018. And then for each one of the strategic initiatives, we kind of did the same thing. What I like about this one is it gives you a lot of flexibility, because each project in each strategic initiative didn't have the exact same phases, all right? Some people are, like to do waterfall. They want to do the same phases for every project. You need to be a little bit more flexible about that in your road mapping. Different projects might have different phases that you want to address. This is a great way to show that. Here's another one. Again, this very tactical one. It's very feature-based. All right, but we kind of showed how in each quarter we would be delivering additional features to the platform and how they would all add up over time. In this case, this was done for our team that was very tactical and basically said, these are all the features we want. They ordered them in priority, and they said, when can you deliver them? And we basically broke it out by quarter, because that made the most sense for us. And you can see it's very tactical. It gets into these different features that we were going to deliver by quarter. And then here's like a totally crazy idea. You could use Salesforce to track your roadmap. All right, this is actually what we do internally. This is my own roadmap. I created a dashboard for our success programs. All right, we actually have a custom object in our Salesforce org where we track the progress of all of our success programs. This one is specifically for accelerators. If you're a Premier customer, you have access to accelerators. If you're not a Premier customer, go talk to your AE and get access to these great things. But they're like short consulting engagements. I manage the platform accelerator portfolio. At the time that I took this snapshot, we had 29 what we call generally available accelerators. I had my planned roadmap here in the beginning. You could see we were going to release 8 in April, 9 in June, 9 more in August, 5 more in October. And then we had an additional backlog. These were actually additional accelerators that we want to build, but we did not have the budget or resources to build given from April to October. We'll probably build them later on. So I actually, I leveraged the capabilities of Salesforce to very simply create a roadmap. This dashboard we actually send to all of our stakeholders. We send it to our field delivery team who's delivering the accelerators. We send it to our PMO office who is responsible for the care and feeding of our accelerators. We send it to our executive sponsors who are interested in what accelerators are coming. We send it to our success managers. This is used basically throughout our organization to show people what our roadmap is. What's really nice about this one, being a dashboard, is they can click into each one of these and get the details about exactly which accelerators they were. I was going to show you the details, but my boss wouldn't let me. So, sorry. And this was just a dashboard, right? We had a custom object. I just created a dashboard, and that's all I really did. But there's a couple tools out there in the App Exchange you guys might want to look at that can really help with effective roadmap building, and not only that, but project tracking. So Agile Accelerator is one that Salesforce built. It's one that actually Salesforce uses for its product management. You can use it to manage your backlogs, your sprints, your user stories, your defects, and a lot more. This is actually a screenshot of something called Gus, which is the environment that our developers use to build our product. And it shows how we use it. It's really helpful. It has like burn down charts if you're a sprint shop. And it's a really great, especially if you're a sprint or an agile shop, this is a great tool. There's also a couple other ones out there. I think it's a project management app. There's one called PM Task Tracker that's a great kind of just task-based one. If you just go to the App Exchange and search for project management, there's no shortage of project management apps. So if you want to track it in Salesforce, I highly encourage that. We do. Look at some of the App Exchange tools out there to track your roadmap. And then, if you're building it for Salesforce users, it's really easy for them to access it, right? It's really easy to share it. You can post it on Chatter, and you can make sure everybody has view into it. Remember, communicating your roadmap it's such a key component to an effective roadmap, and that way you can get that feedback and you can get that input at all stages. All right, so I have 2 minutes left, so let's talk about some key takeaways for building effective roadmaps. I've said this a couple times, but it's really important. ABC, always be communicating your roadmap. Share and evangelize your roadmap early and often in your process. 2 types of workshops. Again, ideation, early, validation, later. All right, and validation is a constant thing. You shouldn't just have one validation workshop and say, oh, I'm done, it's validated. No, constantly validation. Each release, as your roadmap grows, constantly be validating, constantly be ideating. Be soliciting the feedback. Make sure that you're talking to enough people that you have an effective roadmap. Now, you can't do everything that everybody wants. That's where prioritization comes in, but you need to include their input and make sure that if people know that they're heard, even if you're not going to do what you want them to do, as long as they're heard, you can achieve buy-in. And that's really where an effective roadmap comes into play, is where you can achieve buy-in. Make sure you stay agile and open to change. Again, 20 years ago, you could write a waterfall roadmap, say it's validated, and go off and build for 6 months, and that was kind of the way things worked. Well, that's no longer the case. You need to stay agile and open. And one thing that sometimes people kind of forget is if you're building a roadmap for your Salesforce, we have 3 releases a year. You need to work that into your roadmap and be agile to how we're going to change as well. Track and report on budget, resources, and progress. This is really important. A roadmap is not a static thing that says this is what we're going to build. You should be updating that over time. If you're truly agile, if something is taking longer than planned, things should fall out of the sprint and get pushed back, which means other things should be pushed back. So you need to be constantly updating, tracking, and reporting out. You definitely need to be reporting out to your project sponsor. If additional budget is needed or you're not going to hit deadlines or goals, you need to let them know. The earlier you can let an executive sponsor know that you might need more budget, the better you're going to be. Coming to an executive sponsor at the 11th hour to get budget never goes well. Believe me, I've been there. It never goes well. Even if you do get the budget, you still feel like you lost. All right, and then last but not least, prioritize, prioritize, prioritize. You cannot do everything that everybody wants. If you try to build a roadmap that's going to give everybody 100% of the features you want, that roadmap will certainly fail because there's just no way you could deliver on that. So make sure you're building realistic roadmaps that have been prioritized. The way you prioritize is the best way you can do it as someone who is building a roadmap is be agnostic. use the input from your business, use the input from your end users, your developers and admins to give you the priority. You might have some preconceived notions about what the priority is, but you need to work with the business to understand the priority and then validate that priority with them. Make sure that it's not just you building the roadmap in a silo, that you've communicated out and then you have good reasons why the priority is the way it is. All right, so that's all the time I have today for building roadmaps. I'll hang around and take some questions. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of Trailhead. Go see Luke Skywalker. Thank you.